Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, testing.
How are you? Pretty good. How you doing? Fine, thank you. Lots of rain, 4 Thank you. I'm still waiting for that AI stuff to install it. Yeah. And so you don't have anything else to do.
Sticking a lot of them. I don't want it to be the whole world of AI to figure out what it is. Want it to concentrate on one of them. Willing to look to- Yes, so once I have the model ready, then I'll set up a lot of already.
Part of the. That PDT. Different. And then. Feedback. Oh, what? It's got a signal and everything, use it. I just want to fix it. Really, really. One of my members contacted me about they didn't. Oh, it's this aircraft and pretty, thermal pictures of it. This is not, it was the one in the oak. And if you don't, maybe. Yeah, technically, one. Is walk from the water and basically the same way. It doesn't really. Well, but it's an interest because the lights have to be. 1980, they just get from probably the belt. The nice thing, the thing was, there were two figures on that. One was because the only happened physically. The other was the so it's right, yeah. You know, so maybe the basically so usually stones are really those fly. These all the verdict is what we use, you know, things more than wood. Constantly both. That's the what's the third thing? Yes. They use way more than I'm with the oil and I'm going to tax it. He just. And so. And from about 19 and 1917, there was a legal house. all the others. I just put one up on some, you know, Pretty. Don't have to do. Look at us in the section. Basically, do the thing. To me. As proofs and concepts, the life student bodies didn't invent. But they share some examples of the prior to the. That. This needs to change. Anyway. He also did what the other things. He also has got to be, he got into the old one. The government basically seems to be part of it. He's got the most of them. Peace. Concept. Not much of others. I don't remember what. Yeah, figure that out. Got him, locked him in the. Put it in the temple, they'll check out and not. I can look at it. But it's very, yeah. But that would be probably more of a copy one. Well, I have, well, actually it was. It's basically. Translating. It's always bothered me, like, you wanted to watch a movie, order it from, TV and then just go for that time and then they'll have to have it. So my idea is somehow, that movie over to the device that we have harder. Oh, that's you. All of that. You do. The problem is with that, like, only the clever not matter. Now the country where you can get folks still with the film. Yeah. It's not like that's the building. Okay, that is easy for copyright. Had it great, something you can do, 50 years. 50 years also be. I remember. Next Wednesday is the 90s. If you fought for something like. You walk in. From some. And I was person, the top person. Every month in the meeting. Because usually for you. Water capital. In my. Market. So if I feel in the year, I didn't get it, that's it, but, it's denied, you're talking about, probably not for you, something else. It's fun. Hi. What? Okay. Yeah. Oh, fall back. Getting golf in today? Huh? Getting golf in today? Not today, tomorrow? Can we wait until 12 o'clock? Maybe tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Hey.
That is a Ron Dassler.
That's the one that I see now that it wasn't. Jacob, not my head for it.
Howdy. Good to you. Oh, thanks. Horses are good.
We'll call it.
Well taken care of. Well taken care of.
Already. Well, not long, but then don't.
Well, that's confidence. Thank you. Thank you.
Chad, can you hear us?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, Chad.
Hello, everybody.
We may actually need you today.
Yeah, be prepared. We're going to sign you up.
I am ready.
Well, it is 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And as always, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. Do I do it or do you do it? Because
Happy to do it for you.
you can do it. Okay.
Sure. Member Nelson,
Here.
member Nelson, alternate Hamilton.
Here,
And we will need a alternate seat.
actually, we're going to need Bill to be here as well, right?
No, we're going to seat Chad.
Yeah, so you have 3 of 5.
3 of 5, okay, or 3 or 4 right now. Okay,
Okay. And alternate Chad Williams.
Present.
Okay, seating of alternates, we do not have a quorum, so Chad, we're gonna go ahead and seat you. So for the things we need to vote on or whatever, you are involved. Item 5, additions, deletions, and amendments to the agenda. We start with the staff. You got anything?
Staff has none.
Okay, nothing. All right. Committee member, Hayden, you got
I have
anything?
nothing.
Me neither. Chad, you got anything?
No, sir.
Item 6, approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we accept the agenda as published.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye.
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 The agenda is approved. Public comment. Do we have any members of the public?
We have no members of the
How
public.
about in here? Any members of the public that,
We have one member of the public present.
well, we have Carol. So, I'll read the thing. Any person may address the committee at this time upon any subject not identified on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Rainbow Municipal Water District. However, any matter that requires action will be referred to staff for a report and action at a subsequent meeting. As to matters on the agenda, an opportunity will be given to address the committee when the matter is considered. There's Bill. Members of the public may make comments in person by submitting a speaker slip to the board secretary virtually or through virtual or teleconference options, or by submitting an email to Teresa's email address no less than 1 hour prior to the posted start time of the meeting. Comments shall be made in an orderly manner, and profanity, slander, or abusive language which is disruptive to the meeting will not be tolerated. Individuals have a limit of 3 minutes to make comments and will have the opportunity when called upon by the presiding officer. And so, anybody want to make a comment at this time on a matter not on the agenda? If not, we will move on to the approval of minutes. You all in your packet got minutes that Therese and her team put together. Are there any suggested changes or comments on the minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Okay, okay, approved, moved by Bill, seconded by Hayden. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Comments and requests, general manager's comments. Okay.
Yeah, just quickly today, just wanted to report a couple of things that just concluded, or well, one that concluded, one that's ongoing. We did finish the shutdown, the Pipeline 4 shutdown, concluded, ended up going 20 of the anticipated 21 days. So pretty much the entire time. It really was a good test of our system and our system reliability, having one of our main source pipelines out, Pipeline 4, which is actually normally our main source. 1 and 2 typically provides much or considerably less flow than Pipeline 4. And we passed with flying colors. Yeah, no issues. We actually had a pretty significant main break, which I'll talk about in a minute. We had a significant main break right in the middle of that, which we lost a considerable amount of water in, and really still no issues. The ability of our operations staff to really move water across the district from east to west, that was put to the test, and they did a great job. I think better than expected. And then also, of course, our interconnection with Fallbrook was utilized during the shutdown. Not during the entire shutdown, but we utilized it quite a bit. And yeah, again, our customers didn't feel a thing. We really didn't have to push any kind of conservation or anything, anything of that nature. And so, anyways, good test. And yeah, again, staff, a lot of preparations by staff that made that possible. So, I mentioned a pipe break. So we did have a pipe break. Some of you probably already know this, but during the shutdown, through about the middle of the shutdown, or maybe towards the end, I don't remember the exact date. But it's pipeline NN is what it's called. It's a 16-inch line that passes under it from north to south across Highway 76 and the San Luis Rey River. It broke north of the 76, but was damaged all the way under Highway 76. So the board authorized at the last board meeting some authorizations to move forward with some contracts and such to do an emergency replacement of that pipeline. And so we are working feverishly on all of that. We already have an engineering consultant on board and utilizing some of our on-call services, survey and environmental, and everything that's involved there. But pushing forward on an emergency replacement under Highway 76. So more to come over the next few weeks. We're really kind of just digging into everything that's involved there, exactly how we're going to do it, and those kind of things. We do have the consultant we brought on board, trenchless expert. So we're not going to trench through 76. We're gonna go under with some kind of a tunnel or micro tunnel, something that nature. So we're kind of exploring the best options on that right now.
Quick question, Jake. 16 inches, pretty good sized barrel for us.
It is.
And what is it servicing?
So it is the suction side of the Dentro de Lomas pump station.
Okay, so it's
One of our,
it's a sewer.
no.
No.
No, one of our water pump stations. So it feeds the Dentro de Lomas pump station. So basically, yeah. Well, one of the new pump stations that feeds the Gopher tank. So you have basically from Morro Reservoir. This is transmission to that Dentro de Lomas pump station, Dentro de Lomas to the Gopher Canyon tank. And so what we're having to do right now, we've got Dentro running at a reduced rate because you just don't have, we've got some loop pipelines, but they're very small diameter, 8-inch, 8 and 12s, but eight, everything has to go through at least a section of 8. So we're able to get some flow through to the suction side of the pump station to get to Gopher. But right now we're utilizing that temporary pump skid to move water from Turner over to Gopher to supplement, so we can keep enough there. So kind of pulling some strings to kind of keep things in order, but we haven't hit the hottest part of our season yet. Certainly not our highest demands, and so that's why we're pushing through kind of emergency project to restore that flow capacity.
Do we have a sense of when we might get this done?
I don't have a hard timeline yet. We this first phase that we've kind of called it, where we're making sure we make a good decision on how we approach replacing it, and really, again, we want to do it as quickly as possible, but not hem ourselves in, for what needs to come later and things like that. And so we basically put about a 2-week timeline on this planning phase, and that's what we've tasked our consultants and staff with, to kind of get through, at least to go, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And then from there, it's going to be preparation of some sort of bid documents. It'll probably be limited, more design build type bid documents, followed by a hastened bid period, negotiation with the contractor. Probably best case scenario, we're looking at another month or so.
Weeks.
Yeah, or so. And I think it's going to really come down to, the actual repair is availability of contractors, availability of materials, those kind of things, which will all be factored in kind of this planning portion.
But probably won't cover us during the peak time of our.
We're gonna, it's gonna probably bleed into that time for sure. So, so we're moving as quickly as we can without taking on a tremendous amount of risk with a failed pipeline replacement project. That's kind of what we're trying. We definitely want to avoid that too. So more to come.
That it?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, it's still my turn. Two really quick things. One thing I just want to mention, and I think this kind of bleeds into the conversation we'll have a little bit later. Really starting to see the effects of this last season's snowpack and runoff and those kind of things. Again, we've talked about the California side, the State Water Project side. Water supply is fantastic. Reservoirs are full. Up and down the state. We visited Diamond Valley Lake a week or so ago, and it was 96% full or something when we were there. So, and that's really the condition up and down the state. So that's great. Colorado River, not so good. They had a near average snowpack. It was around 90%, 89, 90%, something like that. But the amount of runoff they're seeing, really, I think because it's been dry and hot even through the spring in that area, they're only seeing about 46 to 55%. There's a couple estimates out there of the normal runoff. So they're anticipating Lake Mead and Lake Powell to lose water level this year, which, again, we've got some alternate supplies happening within kind of the bucket of supplies, but the California side is a lot more fickle, right? You have one bad year and you kind of start to dip into those supplies. So I think nobody's in a panic mode yet. We're headed in a drought or anything like that. There is a lot of concern, I think, on the Colorado side, but it definitely gets our ears peaked up a little bit, kind of increases that risk of drought maybe over the next 18 to 24 months. And so we're keeping an eye on that. And, because obviously that any kind of mandated cuts or anything like that would obviously impact us. So something to kind of keep our eye on. The one thing that we've been talking about is the EV rules, that the electric vehicle rules that California put in place, and they are still in place. A lot of banter over what's been done to kind of upend some of that, but the rules that apply to us are still in effect. And as part of our vehicle purchases for this year, which Robert and his team are working on now, we do plan to add an electric truck to our fleet. And the good news is, those costs have come down. I don't know if it's lack of demand or increase in supply, because now you have a couple manufacturers out there. You got both Ford and Chevy that have a usable truck, and so we did start to get some quotes, and I was actually shocked at the low price on them. Chevy actually offers a work truck style, so you're talking no carpet, the kind we buy in our normal vehicles, and at a very reasonable price, sub $50,000. So and they have really good range, pretty decent towing capacity, those kind of things. And so we're picking our spots about where those vehicles get put in our fleet, right? That they're not impacting emergency work and things like that. But we do have one slated, and really that's going to offset. We needed a 3/4 ton truck, or maybe it's a 1 ton, 3,500, for our new pump and motors tech. And so that keeps us in compliance by offsetting that one vehicle. So anyways, thought that might be interesting for you. And that's all I got.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Jake? All right. Finance manager comments.
I have some, but most of my items are coming up in the next month. But it's just that on this Thursday we'll have meeting with our kicking off audit. We're in the beginning of the fiscal year. This is July, so we're starting early. And next week we'll have auditors here, and then they will be doing a preliminary audit all next week. So for the next finance committee, I will have some update for you, and we are planning to finalize it in September. They will have a final audit, and the final report will be in October. So
Good.
Yep.
Good.
That's all from you.
Any comments or questions? Okay, committee members, do you have any comments or you want to make requests, anything? Nope. Okay, item number 10, review proposed updates to fee for service schedule.
I don't know if you guys know Esther. This is Esther Lawn. She's our management in our finance department.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome on
Good
board.
af- Let me adjust this. I'm only 5'2". Okay. Good afternoon, committee, staff. It is my pleasure to present our updated fee for service proposals to the committee for your consideration. It is standard practice for public agencies to periodically review and update our fees for service. This ensures that the district recovers the actual cost for services provided for specific services, and that we remain compliant with Proposition 218. I want to note that the majority of these fee updates that you will see presented to you will not impact most ratepayers. These will apply specifically to situations such as delinquent accounts, water theft, district equipment tampering, or plan reviews and development activities.
There it goes.
Part of our update to the fee-for-service schedule is that the district established a 9-step methodology to ensure fairness, transparency, and updated standards. In reviewing our fee for service schedule, we compared our practices, current and past, to the most updated practices and standards of 19 peer agencies in Southern California. We did this during the review and also after completion. As recent as most updated fee for schedules that districts across Southern California updated in just their June budget proposals. In doing so, we ensured that the district's updates are in alignment with our agencies and conforming to current standards as well. The first page for this schedule, you'll notice the items highlighted in green. These are standard practices that the district has been experiencing in the past few years that we've implemented a fee structure for these specific activities. As noted before, most of these are delinquent account activities or, district equipment damage or water theft. These fees are assessed by partner agencies. We derived a lot of these methodologies from our peer agencies. I want to note that the one item that will impact most ratepayers is the adjustment to the backflow testing for 5/8 to 2-inch meters and 3-inch to 6-inch meters. It will only be an annual impact of $3.24 to 5/8 to 2-inch meters and $5.52 for 3-inch to 6-inch. Now, comparative as recent as Monday of this week, this is a lower cost substantially to having this service outsourced to a third-party vendor that staff does perform annually for our ratepayers.
I have a question on that chart,
I do too.
and well, go ahead. You go ahead, Hayden.
Well, you just mentioned the backflow testing charges for difference. Is there physically anything different in the testing between a 5/8 and 2-inch and a 3 and a 6?
Yes, the amount of work to test the two different sizes is a substantial difference in staff time. And that's in vendors as well. So third-party vendors, they charge $130 for 5/8 to 2-inch. And then for 3-inch to 6-inch, it starts at $230 and above. So it is a substantial difference as
And that's
far
for
as
testing it.
technicality.
You're hooking a gauge up to I'm having troubles understanding why there's a substantial difference in the labor involved to test those two categories of meters.
Yeah, the specifics I would probably have to defer to Robert and Alex and those that are doing it. But my understanding is, yeah, there is just a time difference. The larger have some type of a more involved process.
My read is residential versus commercial, we can charge them more.
No, I think there actually is a substantial difference. And I think that's both, also by when you have a private party come out. I mean,
Right.
yeah, there's just differences in what they've got to do on those larger backflow devices to actually test. Takes a longer time. Yeah.
I believe the testing equipment is
Device, but it shows my ignorance. The second question I have is also in meter testing, and the charges are there again for testing the 3 different sizes of meters. And I'm not approaching that from the standpoint of traditionally we've charged for that, and so have our neighboring agencies. So therefore we need to be in compliance versus, is there any physical difference in testing those meters? In other words, is the labor involved to test a 1-inch meter any different from a 2-inch meter?
yes, there's a substantial difference again from 1.5 to 2, and then substantial to 3 to 6. It involves
On the backflow, I'm down to meter
The testing.
yes, yeah, so 1-inch to 1.5 to 2 and 3 to 6 under meter testing charge. There's 3 tiers. There's a substantial difference. When we went and reviewed all of these costs, we sat down with the individual personnel that performed these. So part of the 9-step methodology is that we interviewed every staff that does these tasks. We incorporated how long it takes for them to do it, if it includes any travel time, additional things, administrative paperwork. And in doing so, we found that there is a substantial difference with the size. 1 inch and smaller, you could do it with one person. With 1.5 and above, you do require 2 people on boots to the ground.
So
I do
tested in situ.
No. These are actually when somebody requests, hey, I think my meter's wrong. And, first we'll verify via, those methods, right? Here's what your readings say over the last week. Does this look accurate? And if somebody still says, no, I think your meter's wrong, we actually physically pull the meter. So that's really where the bigger meter comes into play.
That I understand.
6-inch meter, you got a truck and a crane out there. Yeah.
I know.
So
Okay.
yeah, so these ones have a very physical difference. Yeah, very much.
And the last question I had was, What is a meter obstruction?
So meter obstruction, when we interviewed staff, there have been, they don't happen as often, but when they do, it does include a lot of staff time from, executive team down to field staff. It's when there is intentional obstruction of meters that is on a repeated basis from ratepayers to prevent meter reading. This could be purposely placing ornamental objects over their meter time and time again.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, most of these fees, if there is not if your account is not in delinquency or you're not intentionally trying to
Is that
obstruct,
include magnets on the meter?
that does too as well.
Okay.
Which is why we proposed
you.
it as a fix and then actual costs and damage, because sometimes those magnets, then they render the meter inefficient.
I just wasn't. It was a terminology issue more than it was a challenge or anything. It was like, okay, what are we talking about here?
For sure. I do want to note that
Questions?
your question toward the meter testing charge, to put in perspective, these charges are only assessed maybe from 1 to 4 times a year and is only just as Jake mentioned.
If we're
when
having
there's
to go out and pull
contested.
a meter and to test it, then yeah, I can fully understand that there's a lot of more work involved as the meter size increases.
But if the meter is inaccurate, the fee is not assessed. It is
Okay.
only assessed when there is contest and the meter is properly. And there are many things that our customer service team does prior to reaching the step.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions on the committee?
Yep. Two, first of all, the very first one, the delinquency rate, you have 5%, 1.5%. What are those two numbers about?
And there's an asterisk on one of them.
Yeah.
It's relative. So there's certain California legislation that allows agencies to assess delinquency rates. So the 5% is if your account is delinquent, it's 5%. And then we are also kind of reviewing delinquencies to families that are under the poverty threshold. They are legally to be assessed a lower delinquency rate.
Okay. All right.
And the reason why there's no change to the return check and delinquency rate is because there's California legislation preventing, even if you have actual costs incurred above, to be assessed. We do have a administrative order that allows us to assess $30. California allows $25 at the minimum, but if there's an administrative order, which the district does have, we assess 30. The second time, you're allowed by California legislature to assess $35, but we're keeping it at $30.
Okay.
So those two no changes because they are in conjunction and align with current California legislation.
Can I chime in real quick on this? So the 5% is the initial delinquency amount. And then the 1.5 is for each additional month that they don't pay the delinquency.
Okay. Okay.
And every month.
Thank you. And then my last question is overall for the green column, which is what we're proposing to have the new schedule of charges. Are these amounts generally, or are these amounts in line with what other agencies are charging? Is there any number there that would look really out of whack with other agencies, or are we pretty much in line?
For sure. Part of the methodology was we looked at how long it takes. The staff that, we only have a staff of so many people. So it was very easy to find our actual direct costs. And we based it off of the lowest paid position in that classification, plus the hours, plus the IRS reimbursable rate if there is substantial. And the distance traveled, which is metric 5 for time and motion, we base it off from the center of the district to our district headquarters. So it covers equitable costs if we're going to assess that extra. And we looked at that because these are services that are above and beyond our routine. So not assessing these indirectly, the ratepayers that are not, performing these activities are paying for that.
I think the question though was, are they in line with the other agencies that we
Yes.
compared?
So the answer is yes.
Okay.
And so when we looked at the calculations, we looked at the other agencies, called the other agencies to ask what they incorporate in their costs, and we are not the highest. Some of these are a fraction to what other agencies assess, and some of these are in exact alignment with other agencies. We're not assessing the highest when we compare to other agencies.
Okay. All right.
I reviewed a pretty detailed table that had kind of all the agencies, and everybody varies a little bit on kind of things they charge or how they bundle and package things and that, but that's what I noticed too. We looked for those things like, did we really miss something here? Are we out of whack? And yeah, they were all.
And I guess I was more concerned about, are any of our rates abnormally high compared
to other
to
agencies.
the other agencies? Sounds like if we're in line.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I got. Any other comments or questions here?
Nope.
We got one more table or one more slide too. There we go.
All right, this slide is really relative to only plan developments, plan reviews. These are assessed mostly by our finance district administrative representative and our engineering department. In producing these, we took the direct costs that were charged from Ardura for plan review deposits, and then the same kind of methodology applied to the project administration deposit and material fees as well. And this will be the last schedule that's presented. Once the district established a 9-step methodology, we will look to review these annually along with our budget presentation every year. So we will do our due diligence in updating them as costs increase or as our activities change. Like sometimes if a service isn't provided anymore, or we outsource it, we'll adjust accordingly and always compared to the agencies mentioned. Yes.
Material fees. If we're testing 6-inch meters, why isn't there a 6-inch meter material fee? Or do I?
I think those are
install
case
6
by
inches?
case. Those are, we don't,
Anything above 4 inches is
yeah,
specific.
yeah. And yeah, I think these are probably our most often sold meters.
Okay.
But yeah, and we would probably have to get a direct quote and do those things. Yeah, they're
They're so rare,
less
it doesn't
off the
make
shelf.
sense of-
Yeah. Yeah. Even 4 is probably stretching it. We're not doing a ton of 3s and 4s on a regular basis, but I think those are published regular published costs. I think 6% can change very rapidly. And so
Yeah.
we would do a quote. Yeah.
I have just a couple of things about that particular slide. I am aware that we have various fees that we charge for people to find out what it would cost to do stuff with us. But I've never really looked at the details of what these fees are. So when I see plan review, cost per sheet, $1,200, and all of these different categories under plan review, how many sheets do we end up looking at on average? I mean, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. If you've got, if it's a single commercial lot, so you're building a commercial building or something, it may be as simple as a single meter on, single plan sheet, maybe 2 plan sheets, something like that. When we get into the larger developments, the havens, right? I've got 59 lots. Well, we probably have 15 sheets,
Okay.
20 sheets that include water and sewer and things like that. So, yeah, so it does really vary. I mean, most things that we see are smaller, they're smaller developments and things like that. But that's why the cost per sheet method I do like, because it kind of takes into account, like if I'm just I'm building a single house, or I got to extend a water line 200 feet or something like that. We don't need to collect 20 grand to
Right.
review these
Right.
things. It's much more simple.
Right.
But now I'm developing a whole complex. I need to have multiple connections, those kind of things. And these are all deposits. So if somebody brings in a beautiful plan sheet and then they go, oh, yeah, this is check the box, and we don't spend that deposit, actually goes back. So that's the good thing about these, on a lot of these plan review type things, we do take them as deposit. It can go the other way too, where you've got, an engineer that's not performing on a larger project, and you go through 12 plan checks and they spend 5 times the normal deposit that we take. But it gives us the ability then to kind of track and go, hey, we got to review your plans probably 2 or 3 more times based on how many red lines we had on the last one. We need excess deposit. So this gives us a good starting point for all those projects, and it gives us the ability to adjust plus or minus.
What is the difference between a plan review, and a project administration deposit?
So do you want to go with this?
Sure. Plan reviews are more straightforward. You know, it comes along with the plan that they submit, and those are deposits. So these are not fees. Most often than not, how we set these is usually there will be a refund. The project administration deposit is when they meet with our engineering team, they go over their full plan. We explain to them exactly what goes into the project. And that deposit is covering everything that's not a plan review and that's not material fees. So administration, maybe additional inspections going out. They want to do a meter relocation. That cost really depends on where the relocation is going to happen or whatnot. So the project administration deposit is the district's way of assessing our actual costs than just our base costs of the very direct plan reviews per sheet or the material cost of each actual meter.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a change from how we've been doing things previously. We used to take a inspection deposit is what we called it. Most often we were having to ask for additional funds on these things because it just wouldn't cover the time spent on these things. So there is a note on the, it's not on the slide, but in the actual attachment where
Right.
the project administration project, you can see that now covers both the, you have the material fee, so we know that's just the cost of the meter. But then this covers both us going out, placing a meter, the inspection as that goes in. So that old $1,100 got wrapped into this project administration, but then it also covers, Chad and his team, the time that, take in the application and do these things, meet with the project proponent. And usually we'll do that like on a first, somebody comes in and wants to meet and just, hey, what are my requirements? That's kind of a pro bono kind of a thing. Hey, this is what you're going to require. But then once they get into the project, this actually, covers that back and forth as well as the installation and the inspection. So our field inspector going out and making sure the lateral and everything gets put in place.
So when we assess and collect a deposit, is some of that money used to cover the plan review?
Well, the plan review, again, we determine the amount of that deposit via that table we were just looking at a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then the project administration covers everything else. So it's basically the sum of those that will make up the full deposit.
One's pre-construction, the other one is making sure they comply with the plan.
And Jake, can I just add one thing to this?
You already say, does Chad have anything to add that Jake missed?
Okay. Well, so again, even in years prior, it was based on hours. And so as Jake said, some engineers provide a beautiful plan set and others don't. And so it was different for every single case. If us reviewing the plan took 1 hour versus 8 hours for essentially the same type of work, you're installing a fire hydrant, water services, easements, whatever it is. So this $1,200 really streamlines that. It's an average on per sheet. It also has really helped some of the people that, hey, I have this 50 acres and I'm going to subdivide it into, 20 different lots and I'm going to do this. And they bring us 60 sheets that the county is requiring. So it's grading, it's all these topos. It has nothing to do with Rainbow Water District and what we would be either affected by and or inspecting and ultimately taking over operations and maintenance of. And so we can actually go back to those developers, those customers and say, listen, we don't want to charge you $1,200 times 60 sheets. You really only have 3 sheets that pertain to Rainbow Water District. And that streamlines that process, that saves them money. And then as Jake was saying, the administrative deposit used to be the inspection deposit, but it really does cover more the preparation of a board memo if it's going to have a notice of completion, making sure that the insurance is up to date on the contractor's end, the inspector's time, field time, my time if there's meetings, all of that. So those two things are different. And as Jake said, most of our meetings at the front counter with our customers are pro bono. We kind of walk them down and lead them down the right path. And then it's very streamlined. It is a deposit. We always try and refund the money back if we can. But in instances, especially on these larger developments, when we burn, sometimes we get a deposit of $35,000. I'm keeping in touch with those developers. We are down to $15,000 because we are on plan check number 6. Your design firm is not addressing the comments or questions that we have had back. So when we request additional deposit, it is never coming as a surprise. The developer is not going, I need a full record. They're like, all right, we're aware of that. We understand. But this really brings us up to current dollars. We were going in arrears on quite a few of these.
Okay. I think that does it for me. Any other, do you have any further material to present?
So if this is adopted with any recommended revisions, what it'll look like is somebody comes up to the counter and they essentially just put the number of things that they want into this template, and we can give them a very direct invoice that says this is your deposit and this is your fees, so they know straight up front what they're looking for. And we set these deposits so that most often, you know, if they have gun engineers on their team, they will receive a refund. I think that's preferred than to get another invoice saying, hey, we need more deposits. So the engineering team really helped in making sure that this is a very good fee structure that's in alignment with other districts as well, and also our own practices, to be transparent, fair, and equitable, and just very, very clear from beginning to end. So thank you to the engineering team for collaboration on this. And with that, that does conclude this presentation. As mentioned, we will look to review this annually, and happy to take any revisions, comments, or additional questions.
Okay, committee members, are there any other
I'm
questions?
good.
You're good, Hayden? Bill?
A very thoughtful and complete program. Congratulations. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
And you, the staff is recommending option 1, is that correct?
Correct.
So is there a motion from the committee?
Chairperson Nelson, I have a question.
Yep.
Now that member Stewart is there, am I still voting or am I unseated as an alternate?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Jake just said you're out of the ring.
Okay.
Why? We've seated him and
I was never unseated, but I was assumed I was unseated.
Go wait, get some work done, Chad.
I think he's got a conflict on this one anyway.
Just a little biased.
I think I'm being advised that all 4 of us need to vote on this. Is that right?
I
Teresa?
did count all 4 in the last vote
Okay.
because I wasn't
Thanks.
informed otherwise.
Okay.
Hang in there.
All right, Chad, you're going to stay.
Once you're seated, you cannot be.
And you better do good, boy. That's all I can say.
I like it.
I'm looking for a motion.
I move we accept option 1 or recommend option 1.
I second.
Okay, moved by Hayden, seconded by Bill to recommend the board approve option 1. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. The motion carries. Okay, well done. Well done.
Great job.
Next item on the is the rate study update. I've been looking forward to this, so
Right.
we'll go with that.
Get it. Here. All right, thank you, committee members. We'll talk about our kickoff on the water rate study. It's an exciting subject for Rainbow. And here's on the first slide, I want to show you our timeline on the rate study. And as soon as our budget has been approved, I went ahead and sent it to our consultant who was helping us with the rate study, and it's Andrea from IB Consulting. I met with her on June 17 to kick off our study and to discuss our reserve balances and distribution of fund by fund. And we discuss how we're doing on the water and wastewater fund. But this particular study is on the water rates only for now. And we'll have on the next meeting in August will be IB consultant presentation. We'll have Andrea. She'll give more detail and answer questions. So this is just for information item and to show you where we are right now. And the plan is to finalize the study in October, so it gives us plenty of time in case the rates will change. So the change will go in effect on January 1st. Right. This is not working. Thank you. Okay. And as you know, the purpose of the study is to ensure sustainable funding of our operations, that our CAP construction projects are all funded and also staying on target with our cash reserves. And just to remind that we're still under a current rate study that was done in 2023, and it covers up to 2028. And it did recommend 9% increase every year. Up to 9% and plus the flow through pass through cost. But by reviewing our revenues during the budget, we did agree on the 4% increase on January 1. So we still way under the limit of our Prop 218. So
Did Andrea's work back in 2023, did it take into account the lower cost of water that we would get by detachment? Or did it assume that we were continuing with the water authority?
it assumed we continue with the
Because
county.
9% that's 9% a year is a big number.
That's what happened if we would stay with the county
Okay.
up to 2028.
Okay, all right.
And
So this is very timely.
It's worst case scenario, and that is the reason we're doing this study right now. It's perfect timing because we, after detachment, we have a new vendor where we're buying our water and a new cost structure, and that is something we are reviewing. And on my next slide, I'll go more into detail and then some numbers. Okay. Oh, it's working now. And this is just our current financial challenges and just an overview. We do have about $8 million per year in a CAP commitment. And to remind, we have 350 miles of pipes. We're covering a large territory, and they all do have depreciation, and we need to account and set aside some funds for replacements and rehabilitation. Then we also continue inflationary and economic environment, and we see energy costs increasing, so we're taking all of that into account in our rate study and making sure that our reserves are staying on track. And actually, our plan is to meet our reserve targets by 2028. So far, I do see them being on target. So we're doing pretty good. And this slide I presented at the budget, and I think it's an important slide. And as a reminder of all of our cost pressures, primarily major expense is, of course, continuing to be water purchases from Eastern. It's almost half of our cost. And then we have debt payment, and this is just only for 1 year. It's 6.3 million for all of our debt, and that includes financing of the exit fee that we had to pay. We're taking all of that into consideration because it wasn't considered in the previous study. So this is something we'll be looking at and needs to be financed as well. Then we have unfunded liability of CalPERS, about 1 million per year that we're paying. We have O&M and CAP cost. And that is the cost. Those are cost drivers for rates that we set. And on the next slides, I'll show a breakdown of how by customer class the revenue comes in from the rates.
Before you go to the next slide, so what what expenses are funded by the variable revenues versus expenses funded by the fixed? I mean, I see that they both add up to the same number, but when I'm trying to do the mental math of making some assumptions about which expenses fall under variable versus fixed, I'm having a hard time getting everything to track. Could you help me with that?
Well, that's an excellent question. Our administration, and actually that's what the rate study are looking at, is what our costs are actually fixed and which costs are variable. Variable cost here is the water consumption. So for us buying more water, if we sell more, consume more, that is variable cost. And vice versa, if we sell less, use less, then that variable, the water purchases for Eastern will decrease, which just the variable part of it will decrease because we still have the fixed cost that we pay, like cost of standby charges, the readiness to serve charge and capacity charges, and those will stay the same. And then our administration, O&M, it's a fixed cost because of the salaries they consider the fixed cost. Things like CalPERS, unfunded pension liability, those are stay as a fixed cost. Even CAP is considered part of the fixed cost as well. So
What about debt service? Debt
service
fixed?
is fixed.
Okay.
It's the
It's a
same amount every year. Variable pretty much is what you think will variate with usage, and it primarily is water purchases. They will consume less and we will pay less. So that is the basic idea behind, and that is what is incorporated. I read through the rate study that we did in 2023, and they go very in detail to identify which costs are fixed and which costs are variable.
Okay, so we'll see more detail on that as we go
Yeah,
forward.
that was the one comment I was going to make. If you go, if you read the rate study, they broke it down into many categories and
Yes.
which portions
Yes.
kind of hit other,
And that's for us to stay compliant with Prop 218. You have to identify each cost category. Okay. Here I put a little graph together that I find interesting. And on the right column, you see fiscal year 25. We're in that's a current fiscal year with projected last 2 months, but everything else are actuals. We do see that agriculture continue being the primary revenue driver. It's 61.7% of our total water sales, but it was interesting to see how it gradually declined over the past years. And we do see this uptick in the current fiscal year, even in agricultural use. And I think it has to do with the detachment. And you can see that maybe the pressure on the rates relieved and we have more sales on the agricultural side. And I have similar slide, but broken down by percentage of consumption. The total adds up to 100%. And then you can see how compared to residential, agricultural has been declining gradually and slowly. And it will be interesting to see going forward how this graph will change as we have more residential developments in the area. So we'll take that in consideration as well, because this affects the usage and the setting of the rates, how each customer class puts burden on the system, because the more they use, then the more part of the CAP will have to be financed, but by that class.
Question.
Yes.
Can I assume that residential is decreasing because they're using less water per ADU or per residence than they have in the past? Or because it's just percent to total?
It's just percentage of total, and it's just compared to agricultural and only in fiscal year 25. But if you look
That
at
goes up, that goes down.
residential, which is the orange line, which is not in percentages, and this is in the
Units.
acre feet.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we do project to sell 12,500 in that range in this current fiscal year. And this, how it's being distributed by the class, and you do see that residential somewhat flat on the same level over
If
time.
you go back to your percentages, if you assume residential is relatively flat. And we have a dry year and agricultural use goes up, then the residential percentage will drop.
Correct,
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
correct.
Well,
Because I think the trend is we'll likely see residential rise. I think conservation has mostly taken hold
Yeah.
on a lot of those properties,
Yeah.
and we're adding connections. So I think you even saw, I mean, there obviously some weather impacts on these. Even just this year, the spike or not the spike, but the bounce back, I would say, in demands. You see that on the residential side too, just a little more outdoor watering and such. But I think we will continue to see that probably on an upswing, given the current climate with development and things like that. Yeah.
I'm just, what I'm seeing is a little different. What I'm seeing is that ag is just about as flat as residential. Residential has gone up a little bit. Ag was going down but went up.
Yeah.
And so it kind of looks to me like over a 4 or 5 year period, or certainly over the last 3 years, that the usages remain relatively the same.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
If you look back over 5, we're right about average, right? If you look at our purchases, we're right about our 5-year purchase average. I think there's some nuances in there. We did have a pretty dry winter. If you look back, I think it was actually 5 years ago. So that 5th year back, you'll see sales somewhere in the 14,000 range. Now that may have been 2 consecutive dry years. So potentially you could see us, if we had another dry year, you could see us back in that range. From my view, it still looks like a downward trend, but definitely there's this now, right?
Yep.
Where if you go all the way back to like 2017, it's pretty drastic.
mhm.
2015, that kind of thing, because we were so high. But yeah, if you just look at the last 5, we're pretty flat. I think you've got that
Mhm.
just about right.
And-
Okay.
And agricultural is going to be very much influenced by weather,
Yes.
where residential is much, much less so.
You do see the decline. But I think our customers are more aware now. I think even our low use customers like myself.
Our problem with this is in terms of looking forward, though, we've suddenly had a variable cost reduction substantially with the change to met water with attachment. So the question is would ag usage actually increase some because their costs have gone down? Yeah, and we don't know. The problem is we don't
know. Yeah, I can't say that for sure. My suspicion is there's hope out there. I think there is, hope of very stable rates and ability to do some things to kind of help out that sector. I think now is the time to lean into that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we'd like to look at even as part of this study, and I know we're looking at some other things too. But I do think there is some hope that there's some more steady imported water costs that'll help us keep our rates steady. And crop swap is a definite indicator of that. The reinvestment. So I think there is some of that. It's a little bit of speculation on my point. Time will tell, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here I put together a slide for revenue breakdown by customer class. That's the same calculation that I used to come up with our budget rates for budget revenue for fiscal year 26. And it incorporates the rate. On the left column, you see current rates, and on the right side is the 4% increase that was approved on January 1. And this is for variable revenue. We're expecting to collect about 26.2
So there is
million.
an ag rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
it's 491, and the rest of commercial and the residential 623. And the total revenue is very simple. It's just times how much of each class will be projected to use in a year, distributed by difference in each month, because not the usage is not the same every month. And this is something we'll talk about. Over here is the revenue, fixed revenue that comes from fixed charges on meter charges, depending on the meter size. And I sum them up together, and this is just the total column. And then you can see that on this one, single family brings in almost the half, and it's 11, more than half. And then agricultural, about 8 million. They're split in two, with agricultural with residents and
You
on
might
the
wanna
study.
show the number of units in each.
Yeah,
I mean-
and that's what makes up the difference. We have 2,000 ag customers and 9,000 overall. So more units brings more revenue on the fixed side, even though the residential pays a lower fixed cost. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that on my Excel spreadsheet with all the units, and
Okay.
I just wanted to do high level, not to dig too
That's
much
fine.
into details right now.
Too many engineers in the room.
Yeah.
Pick it
And
apart.
here's a total revenue of variable plus fixed charges, and it will be about 49 million. And to come to the 50 that we need, 1 million comes from other miscellaneous revenues that we receive, like from grants, interest, and things like that. Yes, and we also have pumping charges for those residents who live on the higher elevations. And then they will have, depending on the elevation zone and how much of electricity we're spending to pump up the water to them and their usage, that's how this revenue is being calculated and split by variable and fixed charges. So people who live on a higher elevation, they do have this extra charge on their invoice. And here's our proposed adjustments. We'll spend some time talking about this slide. Here we have, of course, we need to follow Prop 218, and our study is based on, and we're making sure that we're in compliance. And then to that note, we have a couple considerations that we would like committee to review and proposing something like, and it's been requested by some of our farmers who come and speak, and to develop some type of special agricultural rate similar to PSR, and to have them on a special rate that will be discounted for those who will sign up, who will be required to reduce their usage during drought, and they will be responders. So for those who will sign up, we could possibly have the discounted rate. So this is something that we're looking into with our study. And Jake wanted to.
Yeah, just a couple of things on this, and this is something we've heard from customers and the board and committee as something to kind of look into to kick around, and we do have a current ag rate, but the reality is it's based on just a combination of fixed versus variable. So when you're looking at that ag rate, any adjustment you made on the variable side would have to be made up by an increase on the fixed side, or vice versa, right? I want my fixed costs lower, well, then your variable rate has to go up, right? It's a direct.
So you
So
don't
it's
pay us the same amount of money. It's just whether it's left pocket or right pocket.
that's basically how the cost of service is set up. It was intended to stabilize revenues. It was and also intended to help the high water user, right? And give people an option, right? If you want to pay a little higher fixed costs, there's kind of a break point where it makes sense to pay the higher fixed costs and you're using more water. So there was there was certainly something behind it. I think but then we used to have the PSAR rate that came through the county water authority. They had some direct costs that they would remove from, it was related to storage and emergency supplies and things like that. And it was under the same premise that if we are in a cutback, we're going to ask you first, right? You're going to get the discount rate, but basically a lower level of service. And that's kind of a thing it's tried and true, right? That if, if you have costs that are associated with those kind of activities, there are many agencies that do those kind of things, right? And it's passed the test, the 218 test. That's something we want to look at now that the PSAR is not available to us through the county water authority. Internally, it would be more of an internal thing. Well, we are looking both internal and external, but internally we're looking at, is there some nexus to, and this could come in handy. I think this could be a win-win if we can figure out how to do it, but it really takes a deep dive into those individual costs and which ones apply. We were just talking about, if there's cutbacks, it certainly impacts us, right? We're importing all that water. So 10% is 10% to us. I think it may be difficult when that does happen to try to get our residential customers. I mean, you might be able to get a little bit from your residential customers, turn your irrigation down and that, but the feeling is that a lot of that has already been built in. People have already replaced their turf. They've already, got the low flow showers and the low flow and everything's drip and, all these things have kind of baked in a level of conservation already. The one place you may be able to go is ag to actually, get, they're 65% of our water sales. So if you wanted to get 10%, that would be the place to get it. So that's kind of how we're looking at it. It would be a more straightforward approach from our billing system and things like that to implement something like this, as opposed to some of the other things we are looking at, but would be a little more unique and that this, again, this is kind of tried and true, assuming that we can kind of pinpoint the things that would provide that kind of, hey, because you're taking this lower level of service, this cost doesn't belong under your bucket, right? Is kind of what we're looking at. So welcome to feedback on that, but it's just something that we've kind of tasked our consultant with and tasked internally to go, hey, we want to look at this and is there something here that we could make work?
A question, does Eastern have a PSAR rate?
No.
Just don't.
Right,
Eastern
and neither
basically
does
already
Met.
they give us,
Pardon me?
And neither does Met.
Yeah, is that right?
right.
In essence, we buy our water from Met.
Yeah.
Eastern's just the billing agent.
Yeah.
So, and we already really receive their wholesale water, we receive their lowest cost. We're receiving it at the lowest cost. We have a $12 acre foot charge from Eastern, but
Yeah.
that's for a bill. It's peanuts.
Yeah.
And well, don't tell Eastern that.
Cover
but
the
it's
mic.
but it's very
Cover the mic.
well. Again, it's cost of service, right? We're not
Yeah,
really
cost
using
of
any of
service.
their infrastructure. It's really just billing and representation, things like that. So it's pretty low cost. But no, and when I said externally too, I think there is we would like to see. Met used to have what they called the interruptible agricultural water program, IAWP, which did the same exact thing, right? That's why we know the system works if you've got a nexus to certain costs. And so same kind of thing, they would say, hey, this is emergency storage for us. When we need to cut back, you're going to take it. So you don't have access to that emergency storage. We're not going to charge you for it.
That used to work great when the Central Valley was all vegetables. Now that it's all vineyards and orchards, it don't work no more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Because they have to continually be watered.
So we made an initial pitch to Met. The response, I would say, wasn't tremendously favorable, but I think we're going to keep kind of pushing on that because obviously that would be great because that would something we could actually just pass through direct and that would be ideal. But again, we're going to look internally and externally to see if there's something we can do.
Good.
The farmers that have been coming to our meetings on a regular basis have not spoken at length about a replacement for PSAR, et cetera, compared to wanting a generally lower rate for ag water.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how we would go about doing that based on the requirements of the cost of service to just say, well, we're going to cut ag by 10% and they're going to pay 10% less. But I just want to be certain that this rate study is going to take a look at what the impact would be of kind of a general reduction in ag water rates, which is what we're being asked to do by these farmers.
Yeah.
And the discussion that we've not really had with the farmers is, well, if we lower your rate, but you're using the same amount of water, where do we come up with the additional revenue to cover the costs of our operation, paying for the water and all the stuff that goes with that?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, even
Higher fixed costs.
it's true, even beyond, and even beyond that, there has to be a nexus, a justification there to tie it all together. That's really what we're trying to, is there something there we can do? And then again, these are just kind of alternatives and things that we're looking at to try to, is there a better design here? Is there, or a, and then at that point, obviously you would see all the impacts. When, if we do this, then this is what happens. This is the fallout of those.
I mean, the money's got to come from somewhere.
That is correct.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I want to add to that topic. I was looking at how Matt's bill is structured, the fixed charges. So they will be looking at highest day usage from the period from May 1st up to September 30th. And the higher the peak day usage, the higher will be the fixed charge because it will be part of their fixed cost that they're charging us for the readiness to serve charge. So
Is this the current Met rate or what they're proposing?
Well, there's two different things there. We have the variable. That's just based on our purchases.
Yeah.
Constantine's talking about the capacity charge. So they have a capacity charge that looks at basically 3 years worth of or it goes back 3 years.
Rolling average.
Yeah, and your highest usage, and then you pay that percentage of. So it's more of, it's a separate bill that comes. It's a fixed charge that we still will have. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and
But that's their current billing.
that's
We
correct.
know they're moving to try to reassess their fixed charges.
Correct.
To move more revenue into fixed charges.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. Whether it's on the tax, they have an AV tax also that doesn't hit us. It hits each individual property owner. So that's one of their strategies. But yes, they're looking for more fixed cost. That would probably balance out what you would be taking on the variable then. So yeah. For us, I think all the proposals I've seen wouldn't be harmful. Just because we're 100% import. I think who would the pushback comes from those that roll on and off, right? Because they're looking to steady those revenues, and so more would be coming from the one that peaks but then doesn't use on a regular basis. That's yeah.
So
that'll be another impact
So
coming. I think January 27. I think that's the implementation schedule. They're pretty set, I think, through next year, but then 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we were to grant the farmer's request to lower the ag rate, first of all, we would have to decide whether we are lowering the fixed cost component of their bill or the variable cost component of their bill, and then, or both. And we would have to come up with a new structure or a new analysis of what it costs to deliver that water to them, right? Because under the cost of service rules, we can't just arbitrarily decide we're going to cut ag and raise residential,
No,
right?
not
Mhm.
through funds that are, not through funds that are taken through rates. You can't have, basically rate subsidy from one class to another. Correct.
And the overwhelming majority of the funds that we receive are through rates, right?
Correct.
So,
So again, these
Yeah.
are things we've heard.
stuff we're gonna look at.
And we want to dig in deep and see if there's something there that at least we can bring to you and
Okay.
there may or may not. May or may not.
Yeah. And I was looking at if it's possible for them to use less during July and August, those months, then it will reduce our peak day charge. That will be on the fixed side. That's where the savings will come in. I was looking at our monthly sales, and we sell 26% of our whole year in July and August. So those are the most high usage months, and they will be evaluated by Met to give us a charge on the.
So it's
capacity charge.
16% of the year, we sell 26% of our water, right?
For the whole year.
Yeah.
We sell in those 2 months. So that can drive our high fixed charge. So they will charge us higher on the capacity. Capacity charges, which it will go up by 11.5% on January 1. And readiness to serve goes up by 4%, and the variable goes up by 9.5% on January 1 from Met. And then through Eastern, they will relay those costs to us. So I was thinking that the savings from the special ag rate can come in through capacity charges. That's something that can be looked at because they're increasing by so much, 11.5%. And it has to do with them. They're financing their CIP because they need to build higher network because because of their capacity, because of the peak on that one day in July or August from us.
Okay.
Yep. So let's see. Where are
Wait, go back a little bit because when.
we skipped.
Yeah.
The locked off meters, standby charge. So this is something that we're also looking at to decrease the fixed costs on meters that are locked off. And we'll have to look at how this can be incorporated in our rate, what are the savings are, and that maybe we'll need to have minimum 1 year commitment that somebody's meter will be locked off for 1 year. And
What is a locked off meter?
So this is somebody that's basically not wanting water service
It's me.
anymore. Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
But this is something we've heard from some of our customers,
Yeah.
ag customers as well.
Some of the ag customers.
Yeah. And so kind of in the similar fashion, what we're looking at, and we've done a little bit of research already on kind of, what some other districts do and that kind of thing. But basically what Constantine's mentioning is, is there, again, you're looking at is there a nexus between some of the charges we have? Is there a reduction in, the services and that we're having to provide for somebody who commits to some kind of a longer term lock off? We're not talking about somebody comes in and goes, hey, I'm going on vacation for 4 weeks, lock my meter off so I can pay less. But it's more, I don't need water service, but I don't want to get rid of, I don't want to
I don't want to have to repay the capacity fee to restore it.
yeah. And maybe it's not in either of our interests for them to go, hey, I want to, abandon the meter at the main, spend $10,000 and just, destroy the meter. At some point it may come back and, that kind of thing.
For example, there's a meter reader cost to read a meter. Maybe it's a drive-by, but it's a couple of bucks. On a locked off meter, you don't have to read it. So that's a cost you could take out of the feed to the meter.
So
Don't read them anymore.
It's noise,
well,
but
we do bulk read them and some are drive-bys. So that's again,
How many of these are there?
not that many.
200 something.
Yeah. That's another thing we're looking at. And
So under the rule of small numbers, this may be just chump change, right?
yeah. And again, it kind of keeps a service, I think, to the benefit of the district. there's a potential service there when somebody comes in and goes, hey, and and it could, I especially think, here was kind of the thought, like there may be ag properties that have gone away or about to go, those kind of things that may want to restore some point in the future, which would really benefit us.
We had one person that had a 3-inch meter that had been locked off.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I remember.
and they're paying the basic fish fee for something that.
So again, we're
but to
looking at
restore
it.
that is just astronomical in cost, so it impacts the resale value of the property if they decide to sell.
Right. Which in some cases it's a business decision,
Yep.
based for the property owner. But again, it's something that we've heard from quite a few of our customers. It's something that potentially gives us another tool in the tool bag to go, hey, we don't want that meter destroyed, but we need to make it somewhat viable. So there's potential there. Again, these are kind of things that we're just looking at to see if there's
Okay.
a nexus and a value there to kind of, again, provide the customer some value, but also in the district's interest too. And I think both could be there.
It's to show that we're hearing customers' complaints and not only introducing new higher fees on miscellaneous fees for locked off meter fees and messing with our meter, but at the same time, we also can offer some discount for the locked off meters that will have less burden.
If there's a direct nexus, yeah.
When a meter is locked off, is there anything that we have to do to it to keep it in good shape over a 1, 2, 3 year period? I mean, is there anything that we have to do?
Maintenance.
We don't
Nope.
typically perform maintenance on it. I mean, we don't know how long it's going
So
to
it
be off,
doesn't cost us anything for someone to lock off a meter, right?
other than we got to go and lock it off. We still do. I mean, these are some of the things kind of getting down in there. We've talked about is we still kind of do need to make a read because we need to verify that it's zero.
Right.
That there's kind of there's something there. But there could be things like that, like meter services and things like that. This may not apply to those things. So I think there's a potential there that it's probably not going to be 80% of the cost because administration and capacity and those kind of things we still have to be on ready for all of that. But I think there's potential there.
And you know what? I'm going to stop asking because my brain starts running and I gotta remember.
Yeah.
We're talking about 200 out of 9,000 meters here. We're talking. It's just.
Less than 2%.
Yeah. It's just so move on. Yeah. Ignore me. Please ignore me. Silence me.
We almost done with presentation. This is the last slide. And just to show an overview what our rate study is based on. So we'll be looking at the fixed charges, variable rates, and pumping charges by zone. And those are three primary revenue where the revenue comes in. And on the fixed charges, it comes in from depending on the meter size and customer class. And then some of the fixed charges will be coming from, like we already talked about, from Metropolitan Water District. And then variable rates depending on usage, and then the pumping charges depending on the elevation and the location of the customer. So this concludes my presentation, and we already had a lot of questions and discussion during the presentation.
We just passed July 1st. Do we have a number for the fiscal year in terms of water sales?
Not yet.
We're not a finished number.
Still gathering.
As of the end of May, so we just have one
I
more
saw that.
read to go. It's 11,700 and some change, 11,700. So we're somewhere in the 12,500 to 12,800 range probably.
That's what-
In terms of water.
Just-
sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we budgeted for 10, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's good. It was a good year, which we really needed.
It looks like we're about 12,500 or 12,500 right now through May.
No, we're 11,742.
Yeah,
That's purchases. So that includes our water loss. That's not sales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
that's purchase.
Yeah. And it skewed a little bit too, because we loaded up for the shutdown. So
We pre-purchased.
Oh,
so there may be, we're actually kind of lowering it now. That actually might show up in the first month of where we don't buy as
Because
much.
everything's gonna be empty by the time we get finished.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll draw it down some. We'll draw it
Yeah,
down some.
yeah.
So there's you're talking a couple hundred acre feet. It's not.
We're in the highest sales months right now, July, August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so you can probably, it's somewhere between 12.5 and 13,000 is good, is probably where we're gonna land. Cause those would be June reads, so mostly May and June, take on the meters. So probably not another 1,000 acre feet, but probably close to would be my guess.
Okay,
Mhm.
I think we'll move on. Item 12. Thank you, by the way, Constantine. That was a good presentation, and we're looking forward to seeing Andrea and getting a little more detail in August, right?
That's correct. Next month.
All right, item 12. This is all about Carol. Discussion and possible action regarding committee membership. As all of us know, Carol has been attending our meetings regularly now for several months and has indicated that she would like to join our committee. And so we need to, in order for that to happen, the board needs to approve her membership on the committee. And in order for that to happen, we need to recommend to the board that Carol be appointed. And so, Carol, you got anything you want to say to us?
Well, thank you for allowing me to attend, and I'm just amazed at the amount of information that you put together. You all know your jobs very, very well. And I would appreciate it if you would allow me to continue. I would enjoy it. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you. So,
I move we recommend.
all right, and I'll second that. So Hayden moves and Flint seconds that we recommend the board appoint Carol to the committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. There are no no's. And that is done. You bet. Thank you for being willing to serve. We've got, what do we got? 9,000 meters. We probably got 30,000 people here that we're serving.
Mhm.
And we've got 6 or 7 people, 6, I think, people serving on the engineering committee. We've got 4 now, hopefully with you, that'd be 5 committee. And I don't know how many are on the
Around 4.
communications and customer service. What do you got, 4?
I think it's 4, isn't it?
So,
Yeah.
we have a large customer base and we have a very small number of people who've indicated interest in serving. And so very grateful that you're part of that small number, because it's hard to get people to come and do this on a regular basis. So thank you very much.
And by the way, I think that we're not unique, but we are kind of unique in the dedication of the board over the last 10 years to having community input through the committee process and to fully verse us on exactly what is going forward to that board that's substantial. And that is a unique and a actually fantastic heritage.
Yep.
It just doesn't exist everywhere. Believe me.
That's right.
The board just would not.
As a board member, I can tell you, it's very valuable to us in terms of helping us make the decisions that we're being asked to make.
So without further ado, we will move on to item number 13 on the agenda, the review of the monthly finance packet. Anything of interest?
As of May, as we already discussed with this, we sold 11.7 thousand acre feet, and our financials looking good. And then on the second page, you can see our reserve balance. The treasury report is one of my most favorite graphs, and you can see that the nice recovery right there. As of May, we are at 17.5 million, and this is all thanks to detachment. We can see a nice financial recovery and rebuilding of reserves. We will see that this will go down a little bit in July because of the large payments that we have to do at the beginning of the fiscal year on some of our loan obligations, and this is where all this savings will come in. And
Does it also
plus the
include the payment catch up on our Oceanside water treatment bill? No, that's.
it's
that's
all
water-
done,
That's.
all done and paid.
We're
Different.
done.
Hmm?
No, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah, as of June was our last.
June was the last payment.
We're square.
Really?
We're all current now.
That was a 17-month journey.
I thought we were only about halfway through.
Too. I thought we had a ways to go.
Go, I did too.
Be very happy we had a big surplus in water sales.
Yeah,
Good. All right.
Yeah,
That's
Bill,
all our
we're
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
that really helped.
Bill, we're gonna need it when it comes to repairing that main break.
There you go.
I was going to say, yes, this one will going to be one of the CAP expenses that we'll have on the Highway 76 repair.
Isn't that the same pipe that got uncovered in that microburst in 2017?
That was
Was that a sewer line? What, we had that. Is that near the Bonsall Bridge, the one that comes right off?
You know where the
Mm.
coffee hut
Uh,
thing is?
Yeah,
The line
little bit
is
west.
Just this side of the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, west of there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we had damage in the creek bed from that storm. And that's been a while now. It's been 8 years.
That was closer to the lift station.
Yeah,
in
yeah, you're right. It was near the lift station.
Yeah.
On Moosa Creek.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're maybe a half, 3/4 mile
Oh,
west of there is this
And-
one. Yeah.
Thankfully, it's not a wastewater pipe because
Yeah.
you cannot use funds that we receive
Right,
from all,
right.
all additional water sales to
Right.
cover anything that is broken on the wastewater. And the Highway 76, it is a water line, and we do have some savings from extra water sales, so they will come in.
Well, that's good.
And-
I'm looking at page 15 of our packet, which is kind of the summary, and it looks to me like
Mhm.
our budget assumed that we would have about 6.3 million left over, bottom line, everything. And right now it looks like we're already at 11.7, close to 11.7. So we're probably going to go over 12, I'm guessing, by the time the year is over. And
Because
so that's good.
budgeted was for 10,000
Yeah, yeah.
acre-feet, and also it was budgeted for 10,000 of water purchases. And we'll have to, and that is why it looks so much better, because our water purchases they cost us less, and we're still selling them at the same rates they were set up.
Yeah.
So that's
Good.
enough.
We need it.
Good.
Yeah, just to mention another thing too, and I'll probably recap this in much more detail when we finish, but just as you look through all of our departments too, we've had a really good year of everyone. I mean, there just hasn't been, we have had some main breaks and things that have, some pretty significant ones on Mission Avenue and some others that, they kind of hit us, but really across all departments, everyone in line or below budget.
Good.
So that's with all the benefits of detachment and those things, and then having a good water sales year, in addition to basically the management of this district, the management of the departments being fiscally responsible. I think that all kind of ties into this number that we desperately needed. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you all for that. Anything else?
That's all for me.
It's all for you.
Mhm.
Well, do we have any, we know that for the next meeting, we're going to have a rate study update, right?
Yes.
And probably nothing on the audit next month, right? That we've just gotten started.
Just, I can give a preliminary update.
Preliminary,
All right.
30.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, that'd
Yes.
be great.
Yes.
Okay.
Main break repair. We'll have some better
Yeah.
idea what the cost.
Yeah,
will
we'll
be.
talk about some numbers. Yeah.
Unaudited, finish of the year.
Yeah.
Although you're You're starting this audit fast.
All right.
Yeah.
We're not used to that.
Plus whatever else comes up in your ongoing daily world. So if everybody's in agreement, we'll go ahead at 2:32 and we will adjourn. Okay?
Sounds good.
QED.
Welcome.
QED, quit
Yes.
and eat dinner.
The board's got to act. I think you got the inside track.